All right, good morning. This is Mike Grady, and today we're going to take a look at Luke Czarnomski, who is one of our senior VIP athletes. And the video that you're looking at is Luke when he was a sophomore. And so we're going to look at a progression over 2 years and look at what's changed and go over some numbers with you. And the goal of this is to really help, especially our first year VIP athletes and really all VIP athletes, to see what changes lead, or at least in Luke's case, what changes have led to a huge jump in performance. So let's dive into the video. This was back in 2020, and this was from the evaluation. And this was actually the first time that we saw Luke. And you can see how he moves down the mound. And the one thing that stands out that just by looking at that before we break it down is just the lead leg block, where when Luke gets into foot strike, his body basically from here will continue moving forward. So the hips don't have the ability to efficiently rotate, as the lead leg, Luke's left leg in this case, just isn't able to plant into the ground and allow his hips to rotate. But even from, way back on the first time we saw Luke, there's some things that we saw that were very good. He did create what we call hip to shoulder separation. So we, in this position, start to see those hips start to rotate first before the shoulders rotate. And in here, he's creating some really good layback. So these are kind of good conditions to increase performance and velocity over time. So he did exhibit some of those there. If we go back to the throwing evaluation from that very first year, the format was a little bit different, but you can see that there's some greens in there, but there's also some reds. Here's the hip to shoulder separation rating. That's a green. And you can see that lead leg block is a red. Timing was kind of a warning sign there of the arm. And so you can see the distribution of greens to reds on that very first eval. If we fast forward, in fact, let's go back down in our notes. That pitch that you saw, Luke, was 66 to 70 miles an hour on that day. And his goal as he went through training was to get to 74 to 76. This would have been sophomore year. Fast forward to 2022, we moved ahead 2 years really fast, and we can see same spot. And the first thing we might notice is Luke's is just stronger, right? Much stronger 2 years later, which is good. And as we watch him throw, if we highlighted the lead leg block the first time as not being good, we can see how much that's been cleaned up. Now, slow this down, Luke's able to really rotate. You can see his right hip is rotating in front of that left hip. You can see that lead leg, the left leg, is driving down into the ground. So he's really extracting a lot of energy from the ground there at the lead leg block position, and he's able to rotate those hips really efficiently. So if we go back to the throwing evaluation from the updated one, you can see that all of the reds have been eliminated. Couple yellows, but that's everybody in terms of how we move, but mostly greens. And so if we go down and say, all right, what was his velocity now? On evaluation day, he sat 85 to 87 and topped 88. And also his spin rates were above average. And so over the course of 2 years, we went from topping 70 to topping 88. And so an incredible jump, and we want to talk about why, right? Well, number one, Luke got stronger, and you can just see that, as he is right here in this picture, but also you can see how he's moving down the mound, and he's using that strength to create better movement. So that's number one. Number two, he cleaned up his delivery in terms of taking those reds out, cleaning up taking that lead leg block, which is a velocity killer, in that red position to that green color, and really able to add that velocity that way. And so, what came first? Was it the strength or the movement changes? Well, I would say they both work together. And so as he was able to get stronger, as he was able to study his delivery and kind of learn where he needed to improve, that came together over time. The other thing about Luke is that he experienced a knee injury, an ACL injury as a junior. So it wasn't just smooth sailing from sophomore year to senior year. That was a big setback, and he was able to overcome that and recover from that injury fully, and still see the gains that we see today. So what are some lessons for all of our athletes? Number one, movement patterns matter, right? Strength matters, but bringing those two together is really what increases performance. And so I think we can see that as a good example here. And number two, we're not looking at a September to February change, right? We're not. We're looking at a 2-year change. So some of the things that we want to see happen really fast, for some of us, maybe that happens. But for more athletes, it's a longer process, right? But to go from topping 70 as a sophomore to topping 88 as a senior, that's an incredible jump, but it took 2 years to do that. And I think if we can just zoom out sometimes and look at the process and kind of let the process work, that's reassuring that we'll get to where we want to go. Maybe not quite as fast as we want to get there, but commit to that process, and hopefully by sharing this example, and there are many others, by the way, that we could share of athletes who have taken incredible jumps and really incredible changes in their movement patterns. I just hope that this helps everybody understand how this process works.